Hello, everyone. Good evening. Warm welcome to the Money Book Club. And we're so excited to have all of you here. So I have our community members here. Hi, Shweta. Hello, Kaveri. Hi, Ravisha. Warm welcome. So I'm here. My name is Hira, and I'm here today to, along with Kaveri, to lead and support with this book club meet. So before I begin, let me just introduce who we are. So we are the Women on Wealth Money Book Club, and um, what we do at Women on Wealth is we are a financial training organization, and what we do is we help women learn how to take charge of their finances and also learn how to really how to invest and build wealth for themselves. So, hey, Ravisha, warm welcome. So, yeah, so this space, our Money Book Club, it is an initiative. And this initiative is, the idea of this initiative is to really be able to talk about money and comfortably amongst ourselves. And here what we do is we pick books on financial management, habit building, wealth creation, so that, and create this space where it is very comfortable and easy to talk about money, to discuss about our dreams with money for our future. So yes, each month we pick a book and keep coming together once a week and read and understand and share and discuss. So once again, warm welcome. And I'm inviting you, Kaveri, please jump in.
Yeah, I'm sorry. As usual, my internet connection is a little unstable. So if I have my video on, my audio isn't. I'm really sorry about that. But yeah, just give me a minute. I'm glad that you started, at least started off with the introduction. So as Hira has said, we're Women on Wealth, and we're a women-centric community. And we have our mission to have 50 lakh financially educated women by 2030. That's 5 million financially educated women by 2030. And I think we can make that happen together. And one of the various things we do is reading books about money, about habit building, about personal finance, investing, and mindset building. So right now we're reading a book called Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Feldman. And I think we had just got to the end of chapter 3 together, right, Peter?
Yes, yes,
Yes.
absolutely. Yeah, and here
So,
is the book for
yeah,
everyone.
right. I
Yeah.
think I need to get myself a hard copy too. It's really hard to read it on the screen for me. I need to buy myself a hard copy. It feels in some way like a bit of a textbook, but it is also really, I mean, it's quite thought provoking. Just to think of your mind having two systems is enough to, sort of the slow thinking is what you do to make it into a habit so that it becomes fast thinking, almost intuitive. So it's made me more conscious. I don't know, this last couple of weeks about what I do automatically and what I really think through. It's something that's brought that to my consciousness. So maybe somebody who's read till the end of chapter 3, one more person can share what their takeaways so far has been. That's possible.
Sure. So we could invite, Ravisha, Mansha, hi, good evening. Sneha, welcome. Shweta, any one of you who are, reading the book and have completed till chapter 3, anything that you've got for yourself, please do share.
I have to start to read the book. Yeah, I have not started yet.
Okay. Sure.
So
all right.
the premise of the book, Ravisha, is that we have two systems in our brain. One is the slow thinking, where we take the information, we process it, we think through it, and we make very calculated decisions. The other is what we call instinct or intuition, and it we automatically just, it's sort of like jumping to conclusions, but it's what becomes automatic. But also, it analyzes how, by training our mind to do the same thing over and over again, thinking slowly, it becomes a habit that we can think fast through. So we train our mind to react in certain ways. I mean, that's the premise of the whole book. And I first thought, why would they go on for hundreds of pages with this? But it's actually quite interesting. It does get there. So, yeah, Hira, how about you? What did you take away from this third chapter?
So I like you just mentioned that you are growing a little more conscious, and I see that happening. Like I will just take this recent example. I just posted in the book club about this portion in chapter 3, which talks about the flow state. And in the last couple of weeks, I am growing conscious about what's coming naturally to me versus what am I actually thinking about. So today, last night when I read this, and I was actually in this thought of, okay, when am I in a flow state? Have I actually experienced it? Does it come naturally, or does it really, one needs to put in some amount of effort? And for the last 2 or 3 weeks, I have begun my yoga class. I've begun to feel more comfortable with the postures, the series of postures that one has to follow. And today, during the course of, my yoga trainer has increased the count of Surya Namaskars that I need to be doing. And in that moment, I must tell you, I did notice that I did not have to put in any amount of extra effort or, really had to be very conscious of each movement. It was flowing. And when I completed my, my yoga practice, I actually felt that I noticed the flow state. Yeah, so it just came naturally. So today I'm in the presence of, okay, what is this flow state all about? Yes, whether this is system 1, in operation, or is it system 2? I'm not too sure, but definitely the flow state, yes, I could connect with that. Yeah, though I'm still in the inquiry of, and I would open this as a question for everyone here, have we actually experienced it? And maybe it was for me in the space of, while I was in my yoga practice, maybe for someone it could be, in some other action that they are involved with.
Hi. So I'm not really in a position to be able to switch my camera on, but I'm going to turn my mic on. Coming back to the flow state, I'm a little confused. Like, does it just mean like being present in the moment and being able to pick up on a rhythm and keep going with the sequence of events, for lack of a better word, perhaps? Would that be a kind of accurate representation of it?
Yeah, I think sort of. It's more like when something becomes so intuitive that you don't think about it. It's like when you're learning to drive. The first time you're thinking, okay, first gear, second gear, and okay, stop at this light. But sometimes it becomes so instinctive at one point when you're so used to it that you don't even know how you got from where you were to whichever your destination was, because it's in flow state. You're automatically looking at the rear view mirror, you're changing gears, you're not saying, oh, left foot, clutch, right foot, accelerator. You have got into a flow state where it just happens automatically. Muscle memory is more. On the first day, I gave the example of learning how to swim. I mean, initially, you just put in so much effort into every stroke and having to do every breath. You can hardly make it halfway across the width of the pool. But once you get into that flow state, you learn economy of motion. With the minimum effort, you get maximum result. It's not like your stamina has built up that much more, but you realize where to put the effort. Your body realizes it more than your conscious effort needs to tell you. I don't know if that's a good example. I mean, I'm a potterer and a pottery teacher, so I tell my students that you'll be making pots when you no longer have to tell your hands what to do, but your hands know better than your eyes.
Right.
You're already thinking of, oh, tomorrow I have to pick up the kids from school, but your hand is making a coffee mug. It gets to that state where you're in a flow state. So it's the idea of certain things you learn how to put in minimum effort and energy into it and still get maximum results. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. I was just thinking about what Hira mentioned. And in terms of sharing like my experience, yes, I have felt something very similar in relation to her experience about the Syrian and Muskar, except in my case, it'd probably be a different form of exercise. Again, requiring a lot of focus on the positioning of the body to be able to move it in a certain way, and make those changes and then have it come out naturally without needing to think about it at all. So yes, and being able to see the impact of that and hopefully be able to apply it on and to the financial aspect of my life would definitely be the next step. Might be a little too out there, but I mean, hey, why not, right?
Yeah. I mean, it applies to many parts of our lives. I think. Does anyone else have anything to add? Anyone else who has read into chapter 3? So, Hira, do you want to just recap for us what chapter 3 has said? Actually,
Sure. So what chapter 3 really talked about, some of course, first beginning with how the system 1 and system 2, come together to help you see where is your flow state, where do you connect with. Also, what this chapter talked about, and I will refer to the book, it also talked about the aspect of, give me a second. Yeah, so the chapter in itself talks about, the lazy controller. So how it says that, how system 2 has a natural speed. So that was one bit. A natural speed really, which I got is like you mentioned, Kaveri, where your body is just following the rhythm, doesn't really have to pause, think. That's really what
right.
about, right? So versus where and one of the portions where it's talking about okay, so in this chapter, it's talking about the psychologists along with the author, how experiments, they've done quite a few experiments with respect to system 1 and system 2, that how if a mathematic problem has been given, then, and at the same time, if you are given a choice of whether you would want to enjoy an amazing freshly served salad versus maybe ice cream, so how would your mind operate? Would you still remember the to solve the mathematic problem, or would your mind really rush into making a choice? So so that's something which it talks about, how system 1 versus system 2. So what I got from here is that some of us might be more inclined where we would give it a thought, think logically, and want to give a response to the question that has put forth. Versus some of us may just instantly be focused on, the choice that I have. So which means we're operating from system 1 versus pausing, logically thinking about that mathematics question that has been given, and then give it a thought. So that is what really this book, this chapter talked about. So
I think that's where we got into this Nudge Buddies group, because what I got from that is, if you are occupied with a problem you're trying to solve, then your system 2 is engaged. So it's not really thinking logically about another choice at the same time. It's very interesting because he says that we all think we're multitaskers, but actually no. When our system 2, which is the logical thinking part, is engaged in one activity, it does not engage in another one simultaneously. So you might pick the unhealthier choice because your system 1 intuitively goes for the ice cream rather than the salad. Because if your system 2 cannot interrupt it and say, no, you need this, not that. It's engaged with the mathematical problem. So we tried to say that let's, in the book club, sort of just get into a thing of stopping ourselves from multitasking and multi-thinking, at least for a part of the day. So we brought in a thing where each of us pledges to do one thing some point of time in the day for at least half an hour, where we do not distract ourselves with doing something else. It's very tempting to answer a WhatsApp message or do something else or talk to your child while you're doing it. But you say, okay, I'm going to engage in this one activity. Like I picked up drawing and I said, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to sketch and draw for that half an hour and not look at any other screen, social media, anything else, answer the doorbell. Don't do anything else except concentrate on that one thing. It's very hard. I really thought it would be easier. But we are so much a creature of, being told all our lives that we have to multitask. We find it very hard. I don't know, since school, I don't think I've ever concentrated on just one thing. Your mind just wanders all over the place and you want to do everything else. So that's been a really interesting experiment for me to say, system 2 is engaged in one thing, system 1, switch off, stop doing other things. It's right. Quite hard. Yeah.
It also gets me to think, Kaveri, that as investors, wealth creators ourselves, what is it that we must really focus on, or how do we really see this operating?
One thing at a time.
Money life.
So whole one thing at a time without trying to be everywhere at once. Especially us as women, we've been told, women are multitaskers. These sort of like reputations are put on us, and then we have to live up to those reputations. Right. I don't think we need to. Why should you multitask? What is this glorifying the idea that, to be able to juggle many things at once? What's wrong with doing one thing at a time? I think that's quite an interesting take on the third chapter. One thing done at a time.
Yeah.
Slow down.
Yeah.
Shall we read a little bit of chapter 4, you think? Can you share the screen?
Yes. So the chapter 4, that talks about the associative machine, and I'll just bring that up. And yes, we could begin.
If anybody wants to read, anybody volunteering to read, Hira will have it on the screen, so you can just look at it.
Yes, it's right here. Just it's visible for everyone.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Yes. So who would like to begin?
Anybody at all?
Can read.
I don't mind.
Yes, there are two people. I can't tell who's volunteered, but who were the two?
Hold on.
So we have Ravisha and Mansha. Who would like to
Ravisha, go on ahead first.
Great, Ravisha.
Okay, so Ravisha is reading first. All right, can you read it out?
So it's the associative machine. I have not read the first 3 chapters. Okay, I'm just reading the 4th one directly. I have to buy the book.
That's okay.
Absolutely all right. Please go ahead.
We'll also put up a link in the chat to the Money Book Club resource library. Okay. So the PDF will be available there also if you want to download that.
Okay, thank you. To begin your exploration of the surprise workings of System 1, look at the following words. What is this? Bananas? Vomit. A lot happened to you during the last second or two. You experienced some unpleasant images and memories. Your face twisted slightly in an expression of disgust, and you may have pushed this book Can someone please pronounce this? Imperceptibly. Okay, imperceptibly. Farther away. Your heart rate increases, the hair on your arms rose a little, and your sweat glands were activated. In short, you responded to the disgusting word with the attenuated version of how you would react to the eventual event. All of this was completely automatic, beyond your control. There was no particular reason to do so, but your mind automatically assumed a temporal sequence and casual connection between the words bananas and vomit, forming a sketchy scenario in which bananas caused the sickness. As a result, you are experiencing a temporary aversion to bananas. Don't worry, it'll pass. The state of your memory has changed in other ways. You are now unusually ready to recognize and respond to subjects and concepts associated with vomit, such as sick, stink, or nausea, and words associated with banana, such as yellow and fruit, and perhaps apples and berries. Vomiting normally occurs in specific contexts, such as hangovers and indigestion. You would also be unusually ready to recognize words associated with other causes of the same unfortunate outcome. Furthermore, your system 1 noticed the fact that the juxtaposition of the two words is uncommon. You probably never encountered it before. You experienced mild surprise. This complex constellation of responses occurred quickly, automatically, and effortlessly. You did not will it, and you could not stop it. It was an operation of System 1. The events that took place as a result of your seeing the words happened by the process called associative activation. Ideas that have been evoked trigger many other ideas in the spreading cascade of activity in your brain. The essential features of a complex set of mental events, it is coherence. Each element is connected and each supports and strengthens the other. The word evokes memories, which evoke emotions, which in turn evoke facial expressions and other reactions such as general tensing up and avoidance tendency. The facial expression and the avoidance motion intensify the feeling to which they are linked, and the feelings in turn reinforce compatible ideas. All this happens quickly and all at once, yielding a self reinforcing pattern of cognitive, emotional, and physical responses that is both diverse and integrated. It has been called associatively coherent. In a second or so, you accomplished automatically and unconsciously a remarkable feat, starting from completely unexpected event. Your system 1 made as such sense as possible of the situation. Two simple words, oddly juxtaposed. By linking the words in a casual story, it evaluated the possible threat, mild to moderate, and created a context for future developments by preparing you for events that had just become more likely. It also created a context for the current event by evaluating how surprising it was. You ended up as informed about the past and as prepared for the future as you could be. An odd feature of what happened is that your system 1 treated the mere conjunction of two words as representations of reality. Your body reacted in an attuned replica of a reaction to the real thing. Okay, sorry. I just got a call. Representations of reality. Your body reacted in an attuned replica of a reaction to the real thing, and the emotional response and the physical recoil were part were I can see that we're part of the interpretation of the event. As cognitive scientists have emphasized in recent years, cognition is embodied. You think with your body, not with your brain. The mechanism that causes these mental events has been known for a long time. It is as well.
I think association of ideas.
Okay.
Yeah, it's things are getting because the PDF is a little jumpy.
Okay. As we all understand from experience that ideas below each other in our conscious mind in a fairly orderly way. The British philosopher of the 17th and 18th centuries searched for the rules that explain such sequences. In an inquiry concerning human understanding, published in 1748, the Scottish philosopher David Hume reduced the principle of association to three: resemblance, contiguity in time and place, and casuality. Our concept of association has changed radically since Hume's days, but his three principles still provide a good start. I will adopt an expansive view of what an idea is. It can be concrete or abstract, and it can be expressed in many ways, as a verb, as a noun, as an adjective, or as clenched fist. Clenched fist. Psychologists think of ideas as nodes in the vast network called associative memory, in which each idea is linked to many others. There are different types of links. Causes are linked to their effects, virus, cold, things to their properties, lime, green, things to the categories to which they belong, banana, fruit. One way we have advanced beyond, it's Hume or hum?
It's Hume. Hume.
Okay, beyond Hume is that we no longer think of the mind as going through a sequence of conscious ideas, one at a time. In the current view of how associative memory works, a great deal happens at once. An idea that has been activated does not merely evoke one other idea, it activates many ideas, which in turn activate others. Furthermore, only a few of the activated ideas will register in consciousness. Most of the work of associative thinking is silent, hidden from our conscious selves. The notion that we have limited access to the working of our minds is difficult to accept because naturally it is alien to our experience. But it is true. You know far less about yourself. I read this link. Yourself than you feel you do. It's a beautiful writing. Actually, it's more like a psychological side of thinking. I really like the book. Actually, thank you.
Yeah. So I've
It's
put
really
up
nice.
the link to the book on the resource library. Um, does anyone have any takeaways? I mean, any reactions to what we've read so far?
Can you repeat the question, please? I
No,
can't
I
hear
just said
you.
if you have any reactions to what we've read so far, if you have like just now in these last few minutes what you've read, what have you got from it? What are your thoughts on it?
I could just like kind of understand that it's such a the thinking is such a complex thing when we hear something, or you know the information goes in the head and there's such a complex kind of reactions that happen, and I think the mind that is probably not trained in thinking will have a very different response, and we can train our mind you know to give it a right
Right.
response.
And
That's
I
what I
think
could give it
also
because I have not started.
yeah, a lot to do with associative thinking. Like, when they said banana vomit, banana is something that we generally associate with nice feelings and vomit without. So a lot of it with associative thinking, and you don't know how to put two together. So I think there is that conflict in your mind about, so when you're thinking fruit and you're thinking something delicious, and when you think about the banana, you can actually at the back of your mouth taste it. But at the same time, if you bring the word vomit with it, it is unpleasant. So all these associations which we have, it's not just muscle memory. It's like a taste bud memory, a emotional memory. If someone has never encountered vomit, they wouldn't have the same reaction as someone who has. So I think it's quite interesting that a lot of what we react is learned. And so, like we have trained our mind to associate with certain things, we can always train it to associate other, like where we get our dopamine from or oxytocin. I think it's just, it's wonderful to know that it's so trainable. Mansha, would you like to read from that point?
Sure.
Sure, I'll just bring up this.
And I'm sorry, the PDF has like little unnecessary little letters and numbers suddenly in the middle.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Is it
fine.
visible now?
Yes, it is.
Yes. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
So we're starting with
The
the
Marvels
Marvels
of
of
Priming.
Priming.
The
Yes.
Marvels of Priming. As is common in science, the first big breakthrough in our understanding of the mechanism of association was an improvement in the method of measurement. Until a few decades ago, the only way to study associations was to ask many people questions such as, what is the first word that comes to your mind when you hear the word day? The researchers tallied the frequency of responses such as night, sunny, or long. In the 1980s, psychologists discovered that exposure to word causes immediate and measurable changes in the ease with which many related words can be evoked. If you've recently seen or heard the word eat, you are temporarily more likely to complete the fragment SO missing letter P as soup than as opposed to soap. The opposite would happen, of course, if you just seen wash. We call this a priming effect and say that the idea of eat primes the idea of soup and that wash primes soap. Priming effects take many forms. If the idea of eat is currently on your mind, whether or not you're conscious of it, you'll be quicker than usual to recognize the word soup when it is spoken in a whisper or presented in a blurry font. And of course, you're primed not only for the idea of soup, but also for a multitude of food-related ideas, including fork, hungry, fat, diet, and cookie. If for your most recent meal, you sat at a wobbly restaurant table, you'll be primed for wobbly as well. Furthermore, the primed ideas have some ability to prime other ideas, although more weakly. Like ripples in a pond, activation spreads through a small part of the vast network of associated ideas. The mapping of these ripples is now one of the most exciting pursuits in psychological research. Another major advance in our understanding of memory was the discovery that priming is not restricted to concepts and words. You cannot know this from conscious experience, of course, but you must accept the alien idea that your actions and your emotions can be primed by events of which you're not even aware of. In an experiment that became an instant classic, the psychologist John Bargh and his collaborators asked students at New York University, most aged between 18 to 22, to assemble 4-word sentences from a set of 5 words. For example, finds he, it, yellow instantly. For one group of students, half the scrambled sentences contained words associated with the elderly, such as Florida, forgetful, bald, gray, or wrinkle. When they had completed that task, the young participants were sent out to do another experiment in an office down the hall. That short walk was what the experiment was about. The researchers unobtrusively measured the time it took people to get from one end of the corridor to the other. As Bargh had predicted, the young people who had fashioned a sentence from words with an elderly theme walked down the hallway significantly more slowly than the others. The Florida effect involves 2 stages of priming. First, the set of words primes thoughts of old age, though the word old is never mentioned. Second, these thoughts prime a behavior, walking slowly, which is associated with old age. All this happens without any awareness. When they were questioned afterward, none of the students reported noticing that the words had a common theme, and they all insisted that nothing they did after the first experiment could have been influenced by the words they had encountered. The idea of old age had not come to their conscious awareness, but their actions had changed nevertheless. This remarkable priming phenomenon, the influencing of action by the idea, is known as the ideomotor. Can you help me with that word, please? Ideomotor.
It's ideomotor.
Ideomotor.
Is known as the ideomotor effect. Although you surely were not aware of it, reading this paragraph primed you as well. If you had needed to stand up to get a glass of water, you had been slightly slower than usual to rise up from your chair, unless you happened to dislike the elderly, in which case research suggests that you might have been slightly faster than usual. The ideomotor link also works in reverse. A study conducted in a German university was a mirror image of the earlier experiment that Bargh and his colleagues had carried out in New York. Students were asked to walk around a room for 5 minutes at a rate of 30 steps per minute, which was about 1/3 their normal pace. After this brief experience, the participants were much quicker to recognize words related to old age, such as forgetful, old, and lonely. Reciprocal priming effects tend to produce coherent reaction. If you're primed to think of old age, you would tend to act old, and acting old would reinforce the thought of old age. Reciprocal links are common in the associative network. For example, being amused tends to make you smile, and smiling tends to make you feel amused. Go ahead and take a pencil. Hold it between your teeth for a few seconds, with the eraser pointing to your right and the point to your left. Now hold a pencil so the point is aimed straight in front of you. By pursing your lips around the eraser end, you were probably unaware that one of these actions forced your face into a frown and the other into a smile. College students were asked to rate the humor of cartoons from Gary Larson's The Far Side while holding a pencil in their mouth. Those who were smiling without any awareness of doing so found the cartoons
funnier. Just ignore those other letters.
Okay, got it.
Funnier.
Funnier, thank you. Funnier than did those who were frowning. In another experiment, people whose faces were shaped into a frown by squeezing their eyebrows together reported an enhanced emotional response to upsetting pictures, starving children, people arguing, maimed accident victims. Simple common gestures can also unconsciously influence your thoughts and feelings. In one demonstration, people were asked to listen to messages through new headphones. They were told that the purpose of the experiment was to test the quality of the audio experiment and were instructed to move their heads repeatedly to check for any distortions of sound. Half the participants were told to nod their head up and down, while others were told to shake it side to side. The messages they heard were radio editorials. Those who nodded a yes gesture tended to accept the message they heard, but those who shook their head tended to reject it. Again, there was no awareness, just a habitual connection between an attitude of rejection or acceptance and its common physical expression. You can see why the common admonition to act calm and kind, regardless of how you feel, is very good advice. You are likely to be rewarded by actually feeling calm and kind. I'm going to pause there so someone else can probably continue.
Right. Now, this is most interesting. It makes me want to go and experiment with these things. Try it out on my kids. Yeah.
Really okay. When he was just sharing, I was like,
no, and you also realize that we're being primed all the time. When we see, news reporters who are agreeing with the panelists, we tend to agree with the panelists. When we see news reporters shouting at the panelists and talking them down and rejecting it, we tend to reject it more. We tend to be more critical. I think it's all like monkey behavior in our head. It makes me more calm. And this comes back to as our investing thing. Like before last year, I keep looking at myself. Like last year, I was a different person. This year, I'm a different person. How did that happen? Because the more I reinforced that I can do this, I can manage my money, I am able to manage it better. There is some kind of a, sort of like, it's not like the ability suddenly came in. I get more conscious to the fact that I can. I've spent so many years saying I can't that I thought that I couldn't. I feel like there's some kind of associative pattern there that, I found myself, found investing, found money matters, everything easier to understand once I was told enough that, yes, you can do it. Maybe it was a mental block or whatever you want to call it, but to definitely remove that obstacle by reinforcing that I can do it. It's just something that you need.
Sure. And so while of course this portion, and I'm still, wanting to understand what really is priming. Okay, so I just went onto the dictionary and I was like, okay, what does priming really mean? Okay, and how do you prime your mind? So,
it could be like priming a motor, like your pump set. You put in little water and pump it to get it to pump more water up. When it gets, it's like priming. So you're actually setting the ground for it to be better equipped. You put a little suggestion of something and prime it to get more out. I think that's kind of what you're doing.
Okay, so something that I can connect with, and I'll just read that. What is a priming word? So priming is using a stimulus like a word, an image, or an action to change someone's behavior. For example, research has found that we can prime someone to walk more slowly by having them read words like cautious or leisurely. Yeah, okay. So traffic.
The reverse is also true then. I mean, you can get someone to feel better about themselves by reading more positive books. You can get
Right.
someone to act faster by talking about energy and talk about youth and talking about possibilities. People find that they can, act faster, act more efficiently, I suppose. This would be very interesting to see how we can use it.
Right. So which means now when I am reading more about the capacity of my mind, my brain, yeah, which or rather it gets me connected to the last book that we just read, that how Warren Buffett invests like a girl, and how many times chapter after chapter it spoke about that how we as women are natural investors, right? We naturally have the ability to not take risk. We naturally have an ability to really go research, study. So the more that I was reading, I actually got back to realize that, oh yeah, I don't have to worry so much.
That's priming. You've been primed. And I think even the thing saying that women tend to do this and men tend to do that is priming us as well. The minute you say that men act more impulsively, that they're more testosterone driven, a man reading it might make that mistake of being more testosterone driven and acting more impulsive by saying, and this, as we're going back to the whole conditioning of women being told, you're multitaskers, you can manage everything, you can manage your career and the home. But why should we?
Yeah.
My whole point is like, why does the burden rest on you? You can, meaning everyone can. I think it's an individualistic thing. There may be some women who can and some women who can't, just like some men can and some men can't. So are we assigning gender roles and thereby making sure that people act in those ways? Like, I mean, you grew up in a household where both the son and the daughter are never allowed in the kitchen. But when they set off on their own, the pressure is on the girl to immediately be able to cook for herself and clean for herself. Whereas there's no such pressure on the guy. Why? It's a conditioning. Again, the priming all around us, society and movies and books and everything is telling them that, oh, guys are hopeless. And if they do one thing to help around the house, I mean, it's their house, or help with the kids, it's their kids. They're not helping. It's as much the woman who's helping him. But still, then they praise, saying, oh, what a good dad, you're looking after the kids. Nobody says, oh, what a good mom, you changed a nappy. It's just as much alien for a new mom as it is for a new dad. So this priming works on so many levels. We're constantly priming ourselves, and maybe we should start priming our sons.
Right. And it also tells me that the stereotypical approach that we've so far this is, in our culture, we've been we've been primed to look at it just that way, right? That this is a stereotypical role for a man, here is the role for a woman, right? And so that's what
I think, like a couple of books ago, or maybe it was even the last book we were talking about, and I said, the women's lib movement is already like over 50 years old. Where's the men's lib movement? It still hasn't even started.
Right.
Women have fought to wear pants, to be in the workplace, to be able to take on the tough things. Whereas it's just starting, the men's lib movement, where they can wear what they like. It's all right for a man to wear a skirt, to wear makeup. If he wants to wear high heels, let him. If he wants to not take up a job, let him not.
Right.
So that, let him be vulnerable, let him show his emotions. That's part of the whole liberation process. Stereotypes that I think as women, we've actually broken fairly more stereotypes than men have. It's about time. And from the outside, we can't do it. And people keep saying, bring up your girls like you bring up your boys. But I say, bring up your boys like you bring up your girls. Really. Because, it's not the whole thing of protect yourself is don't be the criminal. It's more
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Anyone who would like to, anything that struck with
Yeah.
you so far, you would like to
Please.
share, something's connecting with you, please bring in. Hey,
Yeah,
Rani.
otherwise
Hi.
we're just, yeah, hi, Mansha. Oh,
Yeah. It's funny that I read that part today because that's been on my mind for like a while. Priming is so common and it's such a subconscious kind of activity where we're so not aware of what's going on and the words that are being said around us, the influence, the impact of that influence that it has on us. My question is there any thought, or what are your thoughts perhaps in terms of being able to break that kind of priming ability? Because if it's such a subconscious kind of activity, how do you bring like a conscious awareness to it to make sure that it doesn't really happen and therefore you're not as easily influenced, if that makes any sense?
I don't think we want to not be influenced, but I think we need to be more aware of what is influenced. Because to be completely, I mean, to be anesthetic almost, if we don't get influenced by anything, if we aren't angered by injustice, if we're not, sort of the empathy that we feel when we see suffering, all of this is part of influence. And I think it's important to be influenced, but to be conscious that you are being influenced. And when it comes to priming for stereotypes, I would say the consciousness needs to filter down into those of us who have kids, how we bring up those kids. And leading by example is always the first thing. It's something that, like even when the child is a few months old, you think they're not picking up unconscious signals, they are. The way the parents treat each other, the kind of tone of voice, the kind of language that goes around the house, the way if they poke fun of each other all the time, then that child knows that parents can be ridiculous. But if they are respectful to each other all the time, then you realize they grow up with that kind of respect. And, it's some amount of, personality and yes, upbringing and all of that. But it's not the job of your partner to bring you up. So, like, whether it's the husband or the wife or in what kind of relationship you are in, it's not like, oh, once they're married, they will change. No, let them change and then get married. Because it's not the responsibility of the person there to bring you up. If they want to have a child, they can have a child. They're getting married for an equal partnership, not to have another child. So the whole priming thing is something that we need to be conscious about. I feel more in the terms of what we are doing to influence others and how we are priming others. If we don't like something, we shouldn't put that as a preconceived notion on someone else. Let them form their own cues. I think that's one starting point we can think of. I mean, as a mother, I keep thinking about this. And there's nobody telling you whether you're doing right or wrong. And now, of course, it's like quite a bit late. But I think out of all the things that my children are doing, the thing I'm most proud of is when they're a decent human being. So it's like, you can get all your accolades and your merit cards and you can get all this fame or fortune or whatever. But ultimately, if you treat other people nicely, and if you're a good and decent human being, I think that's the biggest achievement of all in this world. So it's just the influences we're putting out there. Yes, what we've been influenced with, we can fight that, but we need to not put that baggage across to the next. To whether it's our children or our nieces or nephews or even children we associate on the street. Let's not. I mean, we should be conscious of priming to the point, I think, that we don't prime someone else's opinions or influence it. I mean, it can't be helped when you feel strongly enough about something, but be conscious that that is influencing
something. Thank you so much,
Can I
Kaveri.
say
And
something?
Yeah, go ahead, Ravisha.
Yeah, go ahead, Ravisha.
Yeah, I'm Isha. Actually, Ravisha is my daughter's name, and I'm not able to change the name on Zoom
Oh, let me help
because
you do
I'm
that.
on my phone.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Yeah.
So I think it's like, of course, the priming probably is similar to kind of conditioning of the mind, if I'm not wrong, mistaken. But yes, what you're discussing is absolutely right. It is like as women, we are just like, not that even if our parents have not trained us that way, but the ads we saw, the movies we saw, and the entire environment we saw, probably our aunts and grandmothers and mothers doing such a thing, even in the indirect way we got conditioned, that we are supposed to be more responsible, we have to take more load. And somewhere I think down the line, in the growing up process, being more kind and generous and loving and caring, nursing probably, somewhere I think most of us lose uh, the way we hold our boundaries. So we don't even, in my case, in the process of being a kind person, and as a woman you're supposed to have those qualities, so I just lost my boundaries. And then there's a realization something is going wrong. I'm doing everything right, but people are not being that kind, people are not being that generous, and things are different with men around, and things are different when it comes to me. So those kind of discrimination, no, when reading books and all that, and a lot of stuff has started to come even in the market, like Untamed or something, books like that. When I started to kind of go through it, I realized men feel entitled, not that they're bad, like a very small personal example I'll give. So when I started this Wow Woman, and I've also started my one small little startup, so I bought two books, to make notes. So one was for Wow Woman, one was for my business, and I kept both the books on the table. And my husband came and he wanted to write some notes, and he didn't even bother to see, and I have written everything, this book is for this and this notebook is for this, and he just used 2 pages. And then all of a sudden, because now I started to practice the boundaries, and I realized, see, this is not my rough note. And why did you think that you have an entitlement to come and write when you have your own notebooks? Why did you come and write? Because you think, all my stuff is available for you, because wife is supposed to be kind of, everything, I should be present to fulfill. And it's so deep rooted. It's not that he deliberately did it or he doesn't respect me. Rather, he's very polite. But yeah, the way society has kind of conditioned the mind, I think, yeah, priming goes, and it's very deep rooted. And noticing that each thing we should also, I don't support even that feminism kind of a movement where you push men away. I think there has to be balance between both the things, because it's growth of both the people. We can't grow on our own, and leaving men around us behind, that's also not going to sort out the issue. But yes, it's pretty deep rooted, and to explain that to the spouse or brother or father or things like that, it becomes very important. But understanding that, where and I think I started very late. I'm 42, and realizing this at this age is like, quite a work. So
yeah, let me just before that, because I've heard a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm not a feminist." Feminism is not a bad word. It doesn't mean pushing people away, and it does not mean that you're putting top. Feminism as a word doesn't mean that you're putting women on top. It means you're fighting against discrimination and you're for equality. So there's a
yes.
it doesn't mean it is actually what you are describing. Feminism is for equality. It's just taking away the biases. So yes, we are feminists that way. Because historically the discriminations have been against the female or the female emotions, it's called feminism and not equalism. Because patriarchal society is set up in such a way that it's unfair in the favor of the men. So it's called feminism. So let's be very clear about that. But yes, the whole boys will be boys and men will be men. It brings back a very little anecdote that somebody had posted, and I found it very funny about them talking to their nephew, and he was confiding in his aunt about his, this crush he has on a girl, and he was saying, I asked her out, and she said no. So the aunt says, so now you know what you're supposed to do, and he said, yes, I will pursue her, and the aunt said, no, it means you leave her alone. She has said no. Understand that, and nobody had ever told this boy that if someone says no, you leave them alone. Because every one of our movies talks about the hero pursuing the girl. If you get no for an answer, you take 20 men and dance around her till she says yes. You force a yes. No, that's harassment. It is not, if, even if you are so in love with her, if she says no, you leave her alone. A no means no. This is something that that boy had never been told. So there is somewhere the guilt of, you've been primed that you pursue. Just keep at first, you don't succeed, try again. That may be to your profession, not to another human being. You need to respect boundaries. Just like you want something, their don't want is just as important. So this is it's a dialogue that has to happen with boys as much as with girls. And if you can have both sitting together and having the dialogue, even better. You have boys who grow up in feminist households. You have boys who grow up respecting their sisters as much as they get respect. So you have that more equality. Then you'll find those boys are more grounded in themselves. Their egos are less fragile. They actually, you're primed for, it's all right. Sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong. Both are okay. It doesn't make me less of a person. That has to happen. It's not a question of egos hurt. And this whole girls are, boys are has to stop, I think. Yeah. Let's use priming to our advantage somehow. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would just like to come in here. So what it gets me present to is that when we're looking at system 1 and looking at system 2 from the book, and Mansha, from your question, what opened for me was, so what do we do if there is, we've been primed, what do we do? So I think now right at this moment, I'm getting present to that how I have to operate from system 2. I must question. I must be curious. I must question that logic. I must be interested to get to the source of it. So if Isha feels that, oh, this happened, and it was so automatic for her husband to pick up the notebook and just, hey, write his notes right there because the book was available right there. However, he was operating from system 1. Can now I be present to that? That yes, while he's operating from system 1, he has no clue that I need to, be conscious about it. But now that we're conscious about it, can we consciously choose system 2, operating from system 2? And also when we're in this logical space, we're more in a space of response, not react. So system 1 will only get us to react. But right now, the fact that you and I are here, learning about, hey, when does the mind need to be thinking fast versus need to be thinking slow, right? This is really the opportunity. So do I look at these instances as opportunities for me to, okay, hold the space, all right, observe. Now let's see, where is this coming from? Yeah. And I think that's really, how I see we can really take this forward. Otherwise, there's nothing much that we need to. Maybe at some occasions, I feel in some instances, all that I could possibly do is just watch, just listen. Yeah. And not operate from system 1. Even that would be sufficient enough to be standing in the presence of, okay, there is something like system 2. Yeah. Now I think I'm getting. I think I'm getting more interested in reading this book now. Okay, chapter 3.
And maybe we can actually think about, doing this. Like every time we find we're doing something automatic, stop, think about it, and think through it and say, this is what I really want to do, or is this my lazy controller just coming in and taking over, or do I want to actually think this through and do it somewhere differently? Conscious action.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah. Let's share on the book club in the Telegram group. For those of you who are not there, I've already put the link up here. Yes. Join the Telegram group. And as we read through this week, let's just, like we did now, take out quotes from what we have read, share it on that, and let's see the conversations that open up for us on the Telegram group. Because if we find a quotation from there, like we did just now about priming, if we want to talk about priming, we could continue this conversation on the Telegram group. I think it's a pity that more people haven't joined for this, but we can definitely take the conversation to them.
Yeah. So can we take this? So are we looking at, considering today we've read chapter 4, can we look at going back to read chapter 5 and maybe come together and read chapter 6 next week?
Sure. How long is the chapter 4 or 5? Was this the end of chapter 4?
Not really. We do have chapter 4. We have another 3 pages on chapter 4. Yeah.
So how about, and how long is chapter 5? Because people
Chapter
who are not in a reading habit, we don't want to give too much and then nothing gets started. So
Right, right. Chapter 5 is slightly a longer chapter. I see. It's
so
10 pages. That's a long chapter. Yeah.
right. So let's do 3 pages to finish chapter 4 and read another 3 pages into chapter 5.
Okay.
Does that sound doable?
Yeah.
So we have a week and we have 6 days and we have 6 pages. I think we can do that.
Right.
But it's getting so interesting. I have a feeling we might end up reading more.
Absolutely. Yeah. So
Right.
here is our nudge. Here is our nudge with this, with the closure of our meet today. Here is a nudge to once again go pick the book. If you're someone like me who would rather love to pick a hard copy, which can get me more interested, then yeah, call for it. Or otherwise, the soft copy is right here in the resource library of the book club. So this is definitely getting more interesting.
Actually,
so, yeah.
these books right behind me, most of them are books that I started off reading the soft copy in the book club, and then I went into got myself the hard copy. This is how that's going to go.
Yeah. All right then. Yeah, Kaveri, are we
Thank
ready?
you so much.
Please go ahead.
Thank you all so much.
Today.
Thank you, Mansha. Thank you, Isha. And thank you,
Thank
Shweta,
you.
and the others who had to leave early. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you again next week, but please do join the Telegram group and let's continue this conversation.
Absolutely.
Right.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Kaveri.
See you next